Hey, how's it going, you guys? Today,
Overkill.
I got a PS4 1215A model. There are 3 original models. This is the smaller motherboard version. The person who sent this to me accidentally ripped off their power supply connector. There are 4 pins here that are very small that connect this to this. We're just going to fix that for him today. We're going to reattach these 4 posts. We're going to see what the damage is and see what we can do to help. So check it out under the microscope. So right away we can tell that there's something wrong. It looks like he tried to super glue it. I think he mentioned that. And look, there's a bit of this wire that fell off here, and it's just tearing itself back. That leads back to this via, this trace. And so we can solder that back onto this completely missing trace. These 3 seem to be intact and well, but we're going to test that after we solder to them. And here's a view of this part that was ripped off. See how there's still that trace connected to this leg? We're going to get that off, and we're going to solder this all back together. Alright, so first things first, clean up the area. I'm going to grab myself just a cotton swab with some alcohol. We're just going to douse the area a little bit. Maybe that super glue will loosen up. Even if it doesn't, everything's fine. We'll get to it. Alright, so let's experiment a little bit. We see that we have some traces which might still be intact, but we don't know for sure until we test it. So I'm going to put some flux on here. Yes, it's okay to add flux while you have your alcohol on the board. And I'm going to solder to it. Oh, that's weird. Looks like this one's partially ripped off the board. Oh no, that's just the super glue melting. Interesting. Never seen that before. Oh yeah, that's gonna be kind of hard to solder to. Look at that. Oh man. Oh, but alas, soldering iron always wins. Soldering iron. Hard to say that one fast. Yeah, this occurs when people try to yank it out of the motherboard side, the power supply connector, of course I mean, instead of the power supply side. Yeah, you should pull your power supply connectors off of the power supply side, not the motherboard side, so that you just avoid this risk entirely. Looks like we're going to be able to solder to that, and looks like those work perfectly fine. Next thing we have to do is figure out where that trace is headed, scratch that away and run a wire to it. And after that, we might be done here already. I'm going to grab my tweezers. I'm going to scratch this away here. Apply pressure, but don't apply too much. These boards do have layers, so be careful with that. And don't scratch outside of the zone that you're trying to solder to, because there should be a ground plane running everywhere outside of these traces, and you don't want to solder or short anything to ground. Okay. And the way that I got there is by tracing back this wire. You just follow it, it's visible. Now this is going to be hard to solder to, I already know, but I've done this a lot, and I always get there somehow. So I'm going to add some more flux, specifically to that small point, and then we're going to solder to that. We're going to run a wire underneath where this connector is going to go, and it's just going to land right there where that entrance is. Just adding a little bit of flux so that maybe, hopefully, it'll stick. Sorry if the camera's a little shaky, this is extremely magnified. Not much I can do about that yet. There we go. Alright, now that that's got some solder on it, take my tweezers. I'm going to grab this small 40 gauge wire. I could work with a larger wire, but the smaller and thinner your wire is, the less that you'll risk damaging your trace that you're soldering to. Because if you use a heavier gauge wire and you pull on it the wrong way, you really risk pulling out that trace that you're working with and just nullifying all your progress. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm not really satisfied with it though, so I'm just going to touch it one more time. And as always, it fell right off. It's okay. That's life, isn't it? There, I like that more. I like that a lot more. Try to focus on that before we clean it up. Yeah, it looks good. I mean, it's so small that you can nitpick it to hell, but there's no point in doing all that. It's gonna work. It's gonna be out of the way. It's gonna be safe to the other electronics nearby, and I'm happy with it. I'm just gonna lower the brightness a little bit so you can see more color on this board. Now that we've got our wire soldered on, we're going to carefully run it where we want it. It won't touch anything else, not even those long legs that are sticking out of the bottom of this thing, which you have to think about. This tiny connector. Those legs are pretty long. Pretty long. I might want to go all the way around this thing just to avoid touching it. Yep, that's what I'll do. Because who knows, maybe this customer will drop their system, maybe they'll go back in there again and they'll wiggle it, and they won't tell me about it, and then next thing I know they're calling frustrated and guilty, saying, hey, you know what, I opened it again and now it really won't turn on. I don't want that, so we're going to make sure it doesn't happen. To cut these wires, you can do any manner of things. Sometimes people, you might have seen in my other videos, I'll wiggle around with a couple pairs of tweezers to get it off, but I've got these nice cutters. They're Klein. They are about 15 bucks at Home Depot. And they work when they do, so let's see how that worked out. Yep, good. Awesome. Now that that's going good, we're going to route it again so it stays this time. Come on, stay, you little wire. Come on. Come on now. Now that that's there, do all of our soldering, and then we'll attach that last. Now before we solder it, we have to remove the old trace from this connector. Okay, look at this. So you're just going to kind of massage it off. Just got off work. I was doing deck work, construction. Out in the sun today. Was a hot day, for sure. So I'm gonna add more flux. Golden rule, always add flux. When in doubt, flux it up. A little bit of a ghetto way of applying flux, I know, but it works. Okay, that looks good to me. Do you guys like it? All right. Huge old blob. I'm going to place my part here. There we go. And time there's a lot of super glue on this thing. It's like elevating this part. This whole part is like up. Yeah. I wish you guys could see it better, but this thing is whack. Okay, I'm gonna put some more solder on this side. Big old blob once again. That'll do it. Let's put some more on the other side. Yep, sure enough, that'll do it. Now we just have to attach that 40 gauge wire. This is going to be a little tricky. Just going to wrap it there. Come in from this side, see if I can secure it here. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. It's not going anywhere. Everything's secure. This might move around a little bit, so I'm going to secure it with some UV glue. I think that would be the best choice here. But first I'm going to clean up that alcohol. Some alcohol and Q-tip will do wonders. Alright, that's it. It's been attached. All I'm going to do now is put some UV glue on there and maybe even reinforce it with a little dab of hot glue on each end, since these 4 pins, obviously, it's lost one. It's not too secure. Just in case some accident happens in the future, I want this thing to be covered. So I'm going to do a little bit more TLC around it, but that's the gist of it. That's how I soldered these back on, and that's how I fixed these systems.
Game over.